Malcolm Reed was an ordinary teenager, living a life full of dreams and responsibilities. One night, while on a simple errand to get medicine for his ailing mother, his life took a catastrophic turn. A fatal accident involving a white teenager placed Malcolm in the crosshairs of a justice system riddled with prejudice. Despite no evidence linking him to the crime, Malcolm's skin color became the biggest piece of proof against him. Unbeknownst to the world, a silent witness, Jamal, had seen everything. But fear kept him silent. Will Jamal find the courage to speak up? Will Malcolm ever taste justice? And can society confront the deep-seated biases that perpetuate such injustices? This is a story of courage, hope, and the unyielding power of truth. The night was quiet, shrouded in the soft patter of rain. Malcolm Reed, a 19-year-old boy with dreams of becoming an engineer, walked briskly through the dimly lit streets of his neighborhood. In his pocket was a list of medications his mother needed. As he turned a corner, a screeching car broke the silence. He froze as he saw a white teenager struck by the speeding vehicle. The driver didn't stop. The car disappeared into the darkness, leaving the young boy lifeless on the wet pavement. Instinctively, Malcolm ran toward the injured boy. Kneeling beside him, he pulled out his phone to call for help, his hands trembling. Before the call connected, red and blue lights illuminated the street. Two police officers stepped out, their expressions grim. Without asking any questions, they handcuffed Malcolm. "I didn't do this. I was just trying to help," he shouted, panic rising in his voice. But his words fell on deaf ears. The officers looked at each other knowingly, as if his guilt was self-evident. In the courtroom, Malcolm sat in silence, his hands clasped tightly. Despite the lack of evidence, the prosecution painted him as a criminal. "We have no fingerprints, no witnesses placing him in the vehicle, and no motive," his public defender argued. But the judge's stern gaze never softened. Malcolm's mother sat in the gallery, her hands covering her face as tears streamed down. The only piece of evidence? Malcolm's presence at the scene, and his skin color. The judge declared, "Based on the circumstances, the court finds sufficient cause to detain the accused for further investigation." Malcolm was taken away, his pleas of innocence echoing through the courtroom. Across town, 17-year-old Jamal sat in his room, his mind racing. He had been there that night. He had seen the real culprit, a man with a distinct tattoo on his arm driving away in a black sedan. But fear gripped him. "What if they think I'm involved? What if they don't believe me?" Jamal whispered to himself. His older sister, Aisha, noticed his restlessness. "Jamal, what's wrong?" she asked. "I saw what happened that night," he admitted, his voice barely audible. "I know Malcolm didn't do it." "Then you have to speak up," Aisha urged. "I can't," Jamal replied. "What if they arrest me instead?" Elizabeth Carter was a seasoned journalist known for uncovering hidden truths. When she stumbled upon Malcolm's case, something felt off. Her instincts told her that this wasn't just another hit and run. After interviewing Malcolm's mother, Elizabeth began to dig deeper. The court records revealed inconsistencies. No forensic evidence tied Malcolm to the crime. The victim's injuries suggested a high-speed impact, inconsistent with someone on foot. Witness statements were vague and unreliable. Elizabeth's investigation led her to Jamal, the only credible witness who hadn't come forward. When she found him, he was reluctant. "I can't testify, I'm just a kid," he said. Elizabeth placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "The truth needs your voice, Jamal. If you stay silent, an innocent boy might lose his life to this system." Her words stayed with him. Jamal decided to testify. As he walked into the courtroom, the weight of fear and responsibility pressed down on him. He described what he had seen that night: the black sedan, the tattooed driver, and Malcolm's efforts to help the injured boy. The prosecutor was relentless, trying to discredit him. "Why didn't you come forward earlier?" she demanded. "I was scared," Jamal admitted, "but I couldn't stay silent any longer." Despite his heartfelt testimony, the judge hesitated. Without corroborating evidence, Jamal's words weren't enough. To Jamal's shock, the judge accused him of perjury and ordered his detention for providing false testimony. Jamal's arrest ignited outrage. Community leaders, activists, and Elizabeth rallied together, demanding justice. Malcolm's mother joined protests, holding a sign that read, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." Elizabeth continued her investigation and uncovered a breakthrough: CCTV footage from a nearby store. The grainy video showed the black sedan speeding away, the driver's tattoo clearly visible through the window. Armed with new evidence, Elizabeth and her team filed for a retrial. The courtroom buzzed with tension as the footage was played. Gasps echoed when the driver's tattoo came into focus. The judge's face turned pale. He adjusted his glasses, clearly unsettled. "This court acknowledges a grave mistake," he said. Jamal was released immediately, and Malcolm's charges were dismissed. The real culprit was apprehended within days, and Malcolm walked out of the courtroom a free man. His mother embraced him tightly. Tears of relief streaming down her face. For Malcolm and Jamal, life would never be the same. They decided to turn their pain into purpose. Together, they founded Justice Beyond Colors, an organization dedicated to fighting wrongful convictions and systemic bias. Elizabeth's documentary, Truth in Chains, garnered national attention and sparked conversations about prejudice in the justice system. Malcolm and Jamal's story reminds us that courage and truth, no matter how small, can change the world. It's a call to stand against injustice and ensure that the color of their skin judges no one. The story doesn't end here. It's the beginning of a movement for justice, equality, and truth.